So I'm just got ready for bed and I had to check in with you. Um, so I'm listening to They Never Learn, and it's about two different women. One is named Scarlett, and hi Marty. One is named Scarlett, and she is a professor at a college, and she is killing men, right? Um, and so I was thinking it's probably kind of like Dexter or something. But I've noticed she only kills men, and she goes after men who, like the first victim that she has is somebody who took part in a gang rape and stuff. So it's like it's understandable why she thinks the world would be a better place without this guy. But it's just kind of crazy because, like, she's, taking the law into her own hands, right? There's Marty. Gonna say hi? And then there's a second storyline with a girl named Carly who's a student at that college. And I'm not really sure why she's part of this. What does her storyline have to do with Scarlett's? Are they going to become a team? Is something going to happen to Carly to where she has some kind of a vendetta? At this point, I don't really know. And I think I'm starting to figure it out. I don't really want to give anything away. It's just kind of crazy, the whole thing. The thought of taking the law into your own hands and stuff. And is this someone that just wants to kill and is looking for an excuse, like, oh, I'm doing this for the better of society kind of thing? Or is it somebody who hates killing and just is trying to make the world a better place? I think it's the first. I think she enjoys killing. So I'm waiting to find out what's going on with Carly. Are they going to become a team? Is something going to happen to Carly to where maybe she confides in this professor and all that? Now, there is a twist that has happened that kind of rocked me that I wasn't expecting. And I guess we'll see what happens from here. I don't want to tell anything else about what happens because if you're going to read this or listen to it, I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's definitely entertaining. I have no idea what kind of rating I'm going to give it. I don't know that either of these characters is particularly likable, but the storyline is quite interesting. Do you see that Marty's face is wet? He's a water cat technically, and he loves to play in water. So not only did his vet say he's a water cat, but he loves to play in water. And we turned the bathtub on for him, and he likes to play in the water that's running down. And so his entire face and head is wet right now. I don't know if you can see it in the dark, but he is so happy about playing in the bathtub. And then Zelda is over there sitting on a cat tree. So for, what day is it today? It's Tuesday. So it's been a few days since I told you guys that I was going to read these books. While I was gone, I started reading it, but I've only read a few pages here and there for the last few days because I've just been kind of busy with stuff. And I keep getting sick. On Saturday night, I got sick again. And then Sunday, I was just weak and dizzy all day. So I didn't do any reading because it's hard to read and go like this with my eyes when I'm sick. And then last night, I got really nauseous again. I didn't actually throw up last night, but my doctor wasn't kidding when he said that this stomach flu that's going around, it just kind of lingers in your body for a long time. So I finally took one of the anti-nausea pills that he gave me tonight. I didn't want to take it because I don't want to take anything I don't absolutely need. And one of the side effects is that you can get dizzy and like a migraine from it. And I thought, well, I don't want to get, if I get dizzy, aren't I going to get more nauseous? And I don't want a migraine. Luckily, neither of those side effects have happened. But so I've been feeling a lot better tonight. Anyway, so I sat down on the couch with Olive, and I started reading, and I ended up getting 61 pages into the book tonight. And I'll probably read a little bit more before I go to bed. But I'm just loving this book. I love her writing. Sue Miller, she's got this way of writing. It's so comforting, the way that she writes, the way that she describes things. And then I'm sorry the screen is bouncing. I didn't know that I was going to start filming until just now, and I don't want to go grab the stand and all that stuff. She writes characters in this way that they're just so human. Like, I feel like I know the characters, the way she describes them and their personalities. They're flawed, but like so lovable at the same time. And I find myself really forgiving her characters for their flaws and stuff. And I don't know if it'll stay that way, but I love this book. So far in this book, the protagonist, Jo, I was correct. She's going through like empty nest syndrome. She's a veterinarian. So she's got this nice career. She is living in a nice old historical house, and she's got a husband that she's very happy with. But she just kind of feels like she's getting old, and she's just trying to kind of redefine her life. And someone from the past comes into her life and reminds her of this story of her youth. And so she's revisiting this crazy thing that happened when she was in her early 20s. And now the book is going back to, current time again. So it's one of those dual timeline books, but it's so good. It's hard to put down. The way that she writes is very meaningful and a little bit deeper than I think what a lot of authors do. Deeper as far as the thoughts and the growth that people go through, the feelings they have, the insecurities they have. It's really good. So I'll check back in with you, I don't know, tomorrow or the next day, and we'll go from there. Here's Marty doing his little water dance that he does multiple times a day. This is one of my favorite things to do. When I finish a book, I like to sit here, now that I don't do TBRs, and look at my TBR shelf here and kind of meditate on what I'm going to read next. I like to go into my SCRIBD account and see if any of these books are on audiobook so that I can listen and also read. I like to do that because if I want to annotate a book and I don't have a physical copy, it really sucks. Hey, I wanted to slide on here and talk to you about, what's the name of that book? They Never Learn. I finished it. It's a very quick, easy book to get through. There's all these books and movies and shows about male serial killers, and they hate women, and that it is what it is, right? So to me, this book is like a reaction. Like, okay, now we have a woman that I guess you would call a serial killer because she's killed quite a few men at this point, and it's always men that have raped women and got away with it. And so it does explore when men get away with raping women or abusing them, the way that our judicial system and our society is set up to not really
respond to these things. I mean, it's so easy to understand why women don't always report rape, because it's humiliating to not be believed. There's nothing worse than not being believed. And it's pretty regular when things like that happen. This is not rape or anything, but the best way I can describe this book is when I was in college, I had a professor that was a psychology professor, and he was the head of the psychology department, and he showed a lot of interest in me, and I kept getting A's in his class, which, I mean, okay, I was a straight A student, so I didn't think anything of that. He wanted me to do a internship, and he wanted to talk to me about it after class one day. So I go to talk to him about it, and he starts telling me that I'm beautiful, and would I like to go for a ride with him on the back of his motorcycle and go have some drinks? And I'm like, what? He's like, we don't have to have the drinks. We could always pull over and roll around in a ditch somewhere, if you know what I'm saying. And I thought, what? I mean, this man was, let's see, I was about 26 at the time, and he had to have been 60. And that was gross enough to me, but he wasn't an attractive 60-year-old man, and he was in a position of power over me, right? He was my professor, and it made me feel very manipulated and coerced. And I told him that I think he had the wrong idea about me, and he said that I had been leading him on. I don't know what he's talking. I still have no idea. And he told me that he could have me committed if he wanted to. And I'm like, what? So not only are you trying to be inappropriate, but now you're threatening like my ability to live my life. It was really creepy and really bad. And so I was really upset about it. And I ended up telling another professor about it. And he was a criminology professor who had been a chief of police, right? So he tells me, you have to report this. You have to. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to. I just don't think anything will happen. So this was 20 years ago. You know, things have come a little ways since then. And I did go and talk to I don't know what you call that at a college. Was she a dean? And he was with me. He sat there with me because I was scared to go in there. I'd had too many instances in my life where something inappropriate happened, and I don't feel like I was listened to or believed. So he sat there with me. Thank you, by the way, Professor. She told me that she believed me. She told me that she's irritated that he's done this again. It's like the 5th or 6th time now that this has happened. Some things have gone quite a bit further than this. Further? What does that mean? Like, did he rape somebody? But that there was nothing that she could do about it, and that I just needed to transfer to a different class. And so, now luckily I was able to leave and go to a different school. I was moving away at the time. And for the rest of the time that I was at that school, he would follow me when he would see me and loudly mock me. And it was just like, that feeling that whole situation gave me, and still gives me now when I think about it, just how disgusting it is how this book made me feel. Just the things that I shouldn't even say men get away with, the things that people get away with that they do to other people. That was how the book felt, and it did address that. I wish it had addressed that a little bit more, though. I kind of felt like the man hate was real strong. I was rooting for her because I feel like men that rape women and get away with it should be punished. I'm just being honest. I thought it was a good book. I enjoyed it. And there was a really steamy girl sex scene in there. And it's funny because I'm, not in like a situation where I have girl on girl sex or anything, but that was one of the more enjoyable sex scenes that I've read, even though it didn't it doesn't match what I do in the bedroom or anything. It's still felt a lot healthier to me and a lot sexier to me than a lot of the sex scenes I've been reading lately. I think I mentioned that there's so many books that I have read that are newer, and the sex scenes seem violent and abusive and unhealthy. And I'm thinking, okay, how is this helping women move forward and um, know how to have a healthy relationship if this is being promoted in so many books now? And these are books that young girls and young women are reading. I'm not really sure how that's supposed to help this problem that we're having with people not listening to victims. So, because now we're saying, no, no, that's acceptable. That's sexy. If a guy slaps you and throws you across the room, that's great. I mean, what? There's a few places, like I mentioned, that I kind of wish the author went that she didn't, or went a little further with that she didn't. But overall, I thought it was a good book. So I give this one 4 stars, and I do recommend it if it sounds like something that you are interested in. Sorry I went on that tangent about the professor, but I thought you'd find that story kind of interesting. Oh, and guess what? I looked him up out of curiosity about a year or 2 ago, and he's still the head of psychology at that school. So that, I mean, it's been 20 years, and he's still there, getting away with everything. So I'm about to start my next audiobook, and as you saw, I was sitting on my rocking chair looking at my TBR shelf trying to find one that I have on SCRIBD so I could listen to it and annotate it if I so choose. And that book is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I love this copy that I have, by the way. Isn't it pretty? It's a Reader's Digest version. I'm sure it originally had a jacket. This one's naked. I don't mind. I think it looks wonderful. I'm assuming if you're watching, you're a book nerd like I am, and you love looking at the first few pages of books. So you get to see those with me. Experience them while I do here. Book 1. All right. Now, I don't remember what this is even about. It's been so long since I got this book and read it. I love this little wheat looking artwork here with like a, what is that, a windowsill? Yeah. With a windowsill and then the big S. I love that kind of detail that pages can have. Ooh. See, I'm glad I have a physical. If I was just listening to this, I wouldn't realize how beautiful this book is. Got this pretty detail though with even these little, I think that's supposed to be wheat. Yeah. Or some kind of a fern, maybe. I will check in and let you know how this goes. Last night I was up till 2 a.m. I couldn't get to sleep because of this book. And I was looking at some reviews on it, and I saw all these really low reviews, and it kind of had got me thinking about maybe I should just start ignoring reviews a little bit. Like, I'm not saying I won't see them and go, oh, that one didn't have the best reviews, but to actually not read a book over it when I think the book sounds good, I'm just going to decide for myself. I guess once again, it's a situation of if people don't like a slow burn book, they're going to hate this. And this protagonist, she's got a lot of negative qualities to her. And so a lot of people were saying, I didn't like her. And it's kind of weird to me because I don't know anybody that doesn't have negative qualities. I don't know anybody that is just a breath of fresh air in every way. And I feel like people expect the protagonist in a book to be this wonderful breath of fresh air, this smiling, happy person that just lights up every room they walk into, and everybody loves them. And I'm just kind of confused by it because I feel like the more flaws a character has, the more human they are, the more realistic that is, and the more work that the author had to have put into creating this character. And I've been noticing I don't know, I guess times are just changing, but I've been noticing a bit of a trend with books where protagonists that people really like, to me, seem to have no personality at all. I'm trying to throw shade at anybody, but what's going on? I I'm fine with somebody being likable, but if they're boring likable to the point of just not having a soul or a personality, they're just I don't get that. I was really slowly reading it and taking it in. I find so much about her writing and to be fascinating, and I feel like there's hidden meaning in there. Maybe I'm reading into it more than it is, but for me, it's epic. I wanted to check back in with you and let you know my thoughts on A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I just finished it tonight. I did put some little stickies on parts of the book that really stood out to me and on different quotes that I liked. So this book is about a girl named Francie who lives in the early 1900s, right at the turn of the 20th century. Her parents get married, and I think she was born in 1902 or 1903. And it takes place in Brooklyn. Francie is a Irish Catholic girl who is very poor, and this is her coming of age story. I wanted to read you a little excerpt to give you kind of a feel for the book and what made me just immediately feel very enchanted by it. The story of Francois Villain was more wonderful each time she read it. Sometimes she worried for fear the book would be lost in the library and she'd never be able to read it again. She had once started copying the book in a 2-cent notebook. She wanted to own a book so badly, and she had thought the copying would do that. But the penciled sheets did not seem like nor smell like the library book, so she had given it up, consoling herself with the vow that when she grew up, she would work hard, save money, and buy every single book she liked. She's a little girl whose family is poor to the point where they don't own any books. Well, they do own the Bible and a book about Shakespeare. Their mother reads part of each book to them every night before they go to bed. And gosh, this book is about so much. It's about tradition and families and culture. With it being in the time that it was, it's just a whole different world than what we're living in the sense that women can't vote, and there's a lot of people that are very poor and barely getting by, but it seems like they're kind of all in it together. Whereas now it seems like people that are really poor are kind of on their own and maybe even homeless a lot. In New York City during this time frame, it was very segregated, and there's a lot of talk about different groups of people, as far as you've got your Irish people, you've got your Italians, you've got your Jewish people, your German people, that kind of thing. And it talks about the differences between them. I feel like most of the discussion was about Jewish people and how different she felt she was told they were than Irish people when she was a little girl. But as she got older, it seemed like she started noticing less and less of a difference. It's just such a vintage, historical world. And it's kind of mind-blowing how different things are, but how much nothing has changed. The things that some people do, the way people tend to think, the way people tend to live their lives. In so many ways, it's still the same. And it's very adult and explicit and honest. I absolutely loved the relationships that Francie had. She had a dad who was an alcoholic and had a hard time keeping a job. He was not really the breadwinner. Her mom did a lot more of the work than her dad did. But he had this way with her that I found so sweet and endearing. And he cared so much about her and how she felt, and thinking about how to help her and comfort her. And there was so many touching scenes in the book with her dad. She's got this aunt named Sissy who has had a bunch of stillbirths and a bunch of loss. She's gone through a lot of relationships. And I really felt for her character and all the loss that she had gone through and how she perseveres through it and moves on with her life. It was very beautiful to me. I also loved the relationship that she had with her brother Neely in the book. I thought it was very sweet and kind of poetic in a way. Her grandmother has this saying that I really loved, which is, you know, it'll be spring before you know it. And I thought, gosh, I love that saying. It's kind of like saying this too shall pass, but in a way that I found very sweet. I loved experiencing this family as she was a kid and as she was a teenager. And it kind of got me thinking about how our families are such a big part of our lives when we're children and teens. And then we kind of move on and move away. And not that they aren't important, but they don't have the same oomph as they do when we're younger and living together. Sorry, my light keeps dying, so I'm just going to leave it off at this point. The ending was very nicely tied up with a bow on the top as the coming of age part of her story ended. The book ends as she's about to move out of her family home and go to school. And I think that the ending was perfect, but I do wish, and maybe there isn't, I just don't know it, I wish there was another book about what happened in her life after that, because I got really attached to Francie. I really got attached to a couple of the other characters in the book as well. I want to know what happened. I guess it'll have to live on in my imagination as far as what happened with all of them. I did see that Betty Smith wrote 3 other books. If you've read any of them and you like them and you think I might like them, let me know. This book just has so much in it about life advice and experience and things that happen and things that maybe don't happen to everybody but happen to a lot of us, and just different life experiences. And I just thought it was really beautifully done. I also saw there was a movie that was made, I think in the 40s, so I'm probably going to try to find that and watch it. I really love this book, though. I give it 5 stars. Another 5-star book. Yay! I wish all books were 5-star books. It definitely keeps me excited and passionate about reading when I keep encountering all these books that I love so much. And I cried a lot in this book. There was one scene in particular that I really cried in. And then later, when I was telling my husband about the scene, I started crying again. It really just meant a lot to me. It was really touching. If you haven't read this book, I recommend it. I wanted to check in with you and let you know what I ended up thinking of while I was gone. I'm sitting at my desk. I thought it might be fun to change up the pace a little bit and sit somewhere else in my home than where I usually do. This is a reread for me. I've read it many times, but I think the last time I read it was a good 10 years ago. And the protagonist, Jo, is someone that I always took so much comfort in because I connected with her so much and just thought she was just the greatest thing. One thing that has changed for me is that I don't feel that way about her anymore. I find her to be very lost and unaware. I find her decisions to be irritating. I find her lack of growth to be kind of like nails down a chalkboard. And I was wondering what happened. Why am I not connecting with her the way that I used to? But then it occurred to me, when I used to read this book, I myself was very lost and unaware of who I was. And it was kind of neat to realize how much I have come into myself, how comfortable I've become with myself, how I know exactly who I am now, whereas back then I didn't. I didn't have any idea who I was, I don't think, or maybe a little bit of an idea, but I definitely wasn't comfortable in who I was. I think when I used to read this book, I actually maybe even didn't like myself very much, and now I do. So it was really neat to realize how much I've grown in the last 10 or 11 years, however long it's been since I read it the last time. But while reading this book, I just found it so fascinating. The way that the author has put this book and the characters together, how people can justify any action that they do with their thoughts. And there's so much regret in this book, so many lies, so many experiences of someone having to pick up the pieces because of a rock that they threw. It's such an original, well-crafted story. It's executed perfectly. Little Olive. And I really would recommend this book to anyone. Even though I feel differently about Joe now than I did when I was younger, I still love this book and what I go through reading it. You're all barking. She does that every time she goes in the backyard. She starts barking because she wants to make sure everybody knows that she is out there and this is her yard. I give it 5 stars again, like I have the other times that I've read it. And I know when I was looking at the reviews of this, there's a lot of people that this book didn't connect for, and they really didn't think it was good. They didn't find Joe to be likable. I get it. I didn't find her to be likable either this time around. But if you feel that you have the patience to stick with a character and go through their experience, whether you find them likable or not, I recommend this for you. Like, I think there's something in it for almost anybody to read this book, unless they can't stand unlikable characters. But there's just so much to unwrap about us as humans and what we go through and what we do and why we do it. It's really good. It's got me wanting to read more Sue Miller books. And then last night I did start How to Sell a Haunted House. I only have the jacket. The actual book is upstairs and I don't want to run up there. I'm down in my office and I'm in the middle of my workday, so I'm really enjoying it so far, and I will talk to you more about this in the next vlog. The other book that I just started that was an audiobook is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough, and that's going to be my backlist book for the month. This one, a receptionist becomes romantically entangled with her boss, a psychologist, while secretly befriending his wife. And I've heard this book is really good. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm about 10 chapters in, and I have watched the show on Netflix, but it's been long enough that I don't remember anything about it. So I'll probably watch it again after I'm done with the book. But this is it for this vlog. I will be sure to start back up probably tonight with the next vlog, starting with Grady Hendrix and Sarah Pinborough. Thank you so much for watching.